Aloha! Welcome to the Live Ukulele Podcast. My name is Brad Bordessa. Thank you for joining me today. In this episode, I want to talk about music and its relationship to lifestyle. I realize this is kind of an obscure, abstract kind of a concept, but it's something that's really close to my heart just from my background. And it ties in well, I think, with the workshop that I just finished teaching at. Before we get started though, if you like what you hear as we go through the episode, or you've heard some episodes in the past, please consider subscribing. It's a nice way to get curated ukulele radio talk show style things right into your iTunes or into your podcast player of choice. Helps support what I do. And if you aren't aware, this is the Live Ukulele Podcast. Many more lessons and resources can be found on liveukulele.com. I encourage you to go over there and check it out. See what you can find. There's certainly something to inspire just about everybody. So with that, let's get into the content here and talk a little bit about music as it relates to life. In Victor Wooten's fabulous book called The Music Lesson, he makes a quick mention of how music might be compared as life on a small scale, and how life might just be music on a big scale. It's a very similar kind of a thing. And I feel that a lot of times folks see it as a separate thing. Whereas with my background and the people I've studied with over the years and the experiences I've had with music, they're all very informed by life, by the things that happen in the day-to-day, the experiences that we have. And this, for many Hawaiian musicians especially, it's what inspires us. It's what kind of keeps the drive going. It's what gives material for writing songs, that inspiration and that spark of kind of passion to want to share music in that way. It comes from something that happened in life. It didn't necessarily come directly from music. It came from an experience that probably happened outside of music. So just a little bit of background. I started going to annual workshops put on by Keoki Kahumoku, who is George Kahumoku Jr.'s son. And Keoki was very much involved in, or his kind of goal with his workshops was, he called it the Kahumoku Ohana Music and Lifestyle Workshop. And so in addition to learning music, there were opportunities to help in the kitchen and see how people cook the food, and to go help butcher the pig, and to watch Uncle Sonny Lim clean the taco, and all these things that aren't necessarily the music, but they're still super fascinating, and it's part of what these guys do in their day-to-day. And it really is kind of what they do as their hobby, because for so many of these musicians, the music is their business. It's how they pay their bills, that a lot of these lifestyle things are their means of enjoyment, whether it be hunting pigs or like Uncle Sonny diving for the octopus, any of these different things. It really is what connects all the dots together. So I got a little taste of that being at Keoki Kahumoku's workshops. And then when I went off to the Institute of Hawaiian Music in around 2012, I got to spend a lot more time with his dad. And his dad is a fabulous Hawaiian musician, but beyond that, he's also a very heavy-duty farmer who still takes a lot of time to put his hands in the ground, to raise livestock, to do all these things related to farming that are very obviously important to him. It's important to him to have that resource of being able to go out in his backyard, harvest food, prepare it for lunch, and then eat it. I remember very vividly that my roommate in college, Axelman, and I would go up to the farm most every weekend, and we would go help Uncle George feed the goats, spread mulch around, plant sweet potatoes, whatever the agenda was for the day. And we'd work our butts off. It was hot work in the sun, and we'd sweat and get all dirty, and would think, why are we here? And then Uncle George would take us inside. It's like, okay, that's enough for now. Go inside. And we would help him cook the best lunch you could possibly put in front of you. It was always local grown everything, whether it was like, I don't know, fresh eggs on a loco moco kind of a thing with fresh beef that he got from his friend down the road where he runs cattle on their property. And it was always fresh pog from oranges from the neighbor's yard, and lilikoi from just right down the street, and all of these things that Uncle George had his hands in preparing and bringing to this moment where we got to eat this fabulous lunch. And then, of course, afterwards, we'd jam and play some music. But this really impacted me and struck me as here's this Grammy-winning Hawaiian musician who could, if he wanted to, just kind of cruise on his laurels and play music, do the Slack Key show, and just live a comfy life. He could do that. He's that kind of a guy. But he chooses not to because Uncle George realizes that the farming lifestyle and a self-sufficient lifestyle is what informs the music. If you don't have the farming and the self-sufficient lifestyle, you have much less of a window on the music. It's kind of like with the blues. People say you can't play the blues unless you've had hardship or you come from a poor background or whatever. You'll hear different kinds of angles on it, but it's that feeling, that experience of being part of something or being in a certain place with a certain experience that makes the music more potent, that allows you to bring more of a feeling and more of an inspiration to the music. And so with Hawaiian musicians, I believe that is a really strong connection is between the farming and the self-sufficient lifestyle, whether it be hunting or diving or farming or anything along those lines. That's where a lot of it comes from. That's where a lot of the songs come from. That's where a lot of the poetry behind the songs comes from. That's where the island sound comes from even. And I realize that not all Hawaiian musicians grow kalo or whatever. I get that. But we also live in a place that's had that legacy for so long, and that lineage is there. If you reach back even 50 years or 100 years, everything that we ate was grown right here. We didn't need Matson to bring us food all the time like we do now. And that's a choice, right? That's a lifestyle thing, something that comes from the colonization of Hawaii and having the Western influence. It has created the mindset of you got to work, you got to be part of the rat race, you got to join in and keep up with the Joneses and all this stuff, when before it was enough just to grow your own food because that's all you needed to survive, and that was fine. So we've moved to a point where we've kind of gone beyond that. But there's still sort of a memory in the place and in the culture of those things, right? People get super excited when you start talking about kalo, or like, oh, this poi came from my neighbor right down the road and blah, 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 or this pig, uncle caught up in the mountain and brought it down and he butchered it and he smoked it and did the whole thing. There's that excitement, and people realize how important that is and how special it is to have that. Even if you aren't doing it yourself, you still have that appreciation for the thing and for the experience that went into creating that thing or creating those food options there. And even from a distance, that appreciation makes its way into the music. So what does any of this have to do with playing ukulele? Well, you could say that it doesn't. You could very easily make a case for that. But I have seen time and time again that if you teach people the right notes, they still can't sound Hawaiian, and it doesn't sound like Hawaiian music. And that's a question we get asked all the time: is how do you sound Hawaiian? How do you make it, feel Hawaiian? And it feels Hawaiian because we feel Hawaii, right? That is the connection that is made that I don't think people think about a whole lot. Like if I was to go to West Virginia or somewhere and try and play old-timey music, I wouldn't be able to capture that very well because I don't have the life experiences that those people have, the people who play that style of music. That's not in me. I haven't lived those experiences enough to ever bring that to the music. I can play the notes, I can play the song, but I don't think that the expression that I would bring to the music would sound very much like old-timey. It might be a little bit shallow compared to the original depth that music has. And same for any style of music that is kind of specific to a locality or to a class or to a certain culture, right? All these different musics have sort of a background and a place that they stem from originally. And so I think knowing what that is and knowing the lifestyle behind it is really where the sound itself comes from. Sure, you can learn the notes, sure, you can learn the songs, but having the experience is what brings it to life. It's what makes it easy to express, it's what makes you connected to what's happening in the song, as opposed to just reading the lyrics and understanding what the Hawaiian translation says. Like, yeah, it says that, but can you smell the sea? Can you, imagine how gritty the sand feels in your hand if you're sitting on a coral lava beach? Can you, it's like, it's the real kind of, nitty gritty details of the place that you want to experience and be able to bring out through the music. So, all this to say, you should never feel guilty if you're not practicing ukulele. If you're substituting some sort of life experience for practicing, I think that's valuable. That's kind of the bottom line. Is I've gone on holiday and traveled around, and in those moments I'm so busy hiking or seeing things or experiencing new people that I don't end up playing that much music. And I always feel like, well, that's a few weeks of my life that I don't get back as far as playing music or practice. But the experiences and the ways that my horizons were expanded from those experiences, I think is maybe not going to benefit my chops, because that's sort of a different thing. But as far as feel goes, I feel like feel develops over time and as you've lived life. Like my chops now are probably worse than they were, I don't know, maybe 5 or so years ago. Right after I had come out of school, recorded a couple of albums, I was like really practicing a lot and putting in the time and doing those things. I had great chops. But even though I maybe don't have the speed, I feel like I have more to say. I have the feel, I have expression on my side. Because I've lived a little bit more life, I can understand the emotions that I'm trying to put across a little bit better, right? If something is sad or maybe a nuanced version of sad, I have a little bit more depth and understanding of what that might mean for different people. Well, this person's sad in this way, and I've seen this person go through this kind of hardship. And all of those different things, they're different colors of emotion. So those can be different colors of music as it portrays those emotions. And if you don't have any of those experiences, if you live in a bubble, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's hard to convey, I think, the thing that music is best at, and that is emotion. We don't have words for a lot of the feelings that we have, at least not words that capture it adequately, right? The moment when you're just heartbroken and mad and you just want to chuck the refrigerator out the window or something, like, oh, I could just be the Hulk and punch through a wall kind of a thing. You could say it in words, you can express it to a point, but it's really the music that captures it and makes it feel human and makes it feel like that's what's in my head. I hear it in a song, I hear the emotion being played by somebody else. That's what's in my head. And if you don't have any of those feelings or haven't lived any of those feelings, it's hard to make that music yourself. It's hard to get to a point where you can adequately express that. I think this is all just me speculating here. This is super abstract, like I said, but these are sort of my impressions that I've collected over the years. I'm just kind of passing along because it's near and dear to my heart. And so if you have the chance, especially if you're a young person and you haven't in the past, travel, get out of the country. If you are elsewhere in the world, go somewhere besides where you live or where you're from. Different country, different place, different continent, just to see how things are different, how people are different. I mean, you go to Europe and they all look basically the same. I go to Italy and plenty of people look kind of like me, but they're very different. I don't have any context for who they are as people. And so having gone to Italy, now I understand a little bit better about, how those people live and what's important to them and the feelings that they kind of bring to their culture. And so that's a bit of richness that I now have because I have lived it and experienced it. Not that I can now play amazing accordion music on my ukulele, but that experience is there. It's now in my library of things that I can draw from if I ever feel inclined, if I need one of those colors, one of those emotions to pull from. And I say travel because travel is kind of like a bulk, just sort of everything at once moment, where in those times or in, the days or weeks or months or however long you're away, experiencing new things, you've just turned on the fire hose of experiences and information. And usually it doesn't happen like that. And, some people don't have the opportunity to go do that. But there are experiences that you can gather just from being aware and being present in the moment wherever you live, right? I feel like I just came back from Oahu. And I realized that Oahu is home to a lot of people, of course, and it's a great hub for Hawaiian music. But for me, I was very overwhelmed because it was very much city, very much felt like, oh my gosh, I have to pay to exist. I have to pay to park and put my car somewhere. I have to pay to do anything I want to do. It's very controlled. I feel like that's a little bit stifling. So I'm very happy to be home back in my jungle yard, and it always just reminds me how important nature is. And if you're not getting a dose of the outdoors, do that for yourself. Go for a walk, take the dog out, go to the park, whatever it might be, especially if you live in a city situation, because the city's going to be a certain set of experiences. No doubt. That is, you'll probably have a really good grasp on angst and uptightness and all the city emotions where everybody's honking their horn and get out of the way. But maybe the nature emotions and the nature expressions you might not understand quite as well, and vice versa. If you live out in the boonies like I do, going to the city sometimes is really insightful because you realize how so many more people live. You kind of pick up on the different vibrations of folks who do live in that style of place. And, I didn't necessarily super enjoy the experience of being in Honolulu and driving in Honolulu and trying to find parking in Honolulu, but I did learn from it and I gained experiences from it that no doubt will inform my library of sounds and colors that I can create in the future as I play music. So whenever possible, try and expose yourself to new experiences so that they may inform music that you might want to create. like I said, there's travel, nature, different kind of social experiences that you might have. You know, go, and this is silly stuff, but I'm just thinking like what would be outside of my experience realm. Like, I'm not a partier, I'm a quiet guy, but if I was to go somewhere where there is a big nightlife scene and like go out to a rave, that would be a very different experience for me. And I'm very certain that I don't have that in my library of material. But if I went and I saw it and I experienced it, it would sort of make a little bit more sense. Likewise, if you've never, I don't know, rode a bike down a steep hill and felt the experience of, whoosh. And then when you go up the other side, the kind of gravity pull of feeling all the blood move through your body like that. Or if you have, never smashed your face through a cobweb as you're walking down a forest path somewhere and then freaked out because you thought the spider was on your face. These are all little things that sound really dumb, but there's a color in each of those. There's a sound and music and a little bit of life in each of those moments that can influence the music, which is why I think it's so beautiful to call music life on a small scale, and how life is kind of music on a large scale. So if you start thinking of things in that way, I think that you will find that there's a little bit more inspiration and a little bit more wonder to be had in life, just from seeing the little things and realizing how it can affect what you are able to bring to music. So with that, this seems like a great opportunity to share a little bit about my vision of Live Ukulele. When I started Live Ukulele, I was 14 years old, and I really had no idea how life would lead me, where music would take me. I didn't, if you told me that I would be doing this today, all these years later, 15 years later, oh my gosh, I don't know if I would have believed it. It's like, nah, music is great, but really, can it become a thing? And I didn't realize at the time what Live Ukulele could really mean. And it turns out that it's not the most clever name for an ukulele website. There are certainly others that I wish I had come up with, but it's very appropriate for the kind of lifestyle that I have ended up living and the kind of music that I end up playing, because Live Ukulele, it reflects the living part of music, where you're experiencing things outside of actually just strumming your ukulele or picking out a melody. It goes beyond that. And so to give you a little bit of background about what I do and what I envision for myself and for others to also experience is farming. I am very fortunate to have a piece of land that I am stewarding, shall we say, and I'm trying to get to a point where it's producing some food, and it's really become sort of a refuge for me to go and unwind and take care of my plants and work in the weeds in just kind of the relentless environment of just kind of raw invasive species Hawaii, right? Because it's not all just beautiful palm trees and rainbows and waterfalls everywhere. There's a lot of brush and weeds and stuff that shouldn't be here that we have to deal with in order to create beautiful spaces, or to create spaces that lean more towards the food productivity or natural indigenous sort of species that a lot of people envision. That's not the case if you just let things go in your backyard. But in this place, I kind of have my little bit of lifestyle appreciation from the Kahumoku family that inspires me to do this and inspires me to make the time for this and to prioritize it as something to do and as something to make sure I have time and money for, is to be able to be outside, be in nature, to grow things, to get my hands dirty. If you ever notice, my fingernails are all gummed up in a video. It's just dirt, soil. It's not because I don't clean myself. It's just that's as good as it gets for that video. But really, that is, for me, that is my dream of being able to live in kind of a duality of having music on the one side, music as something to enjoy, something to teach, something to pay the bills with. But then on the other side, there's the farming, which is really just kind of, I don't know, under the table. It's not needing to pay the bills. It's just kind of a hobby sort of a thing, which I know is an incredible privilege. I understand that. And it's just something that I'm grateful for every single day when I get to go up there and partake in that. But also it's a choice to try and prioritize that and make sure that that is available for me to stay inspired and for me to be able to, that's kind of my hobby. It's not really a hobby because I feel like it goes beyond that. It's more of a lifestyle choice and a little bit more of a cultural thing. But if it helps you understand kind of how it fits in the stack of things, perhaps it could be considered a hobby. But that is really what Live Ukulele stands for and what it does. Is it really this business that I have here on the website and through the podcast and through my videos? That is what it allows for. It allows me to have this sort of side hustle project of putting food in the ground and being able to bring a piece of land that was once just pasture, bring it into producing. And of course, hopefully someday I will be prolific enough in the production of food that I'll be able to share that with the community. That is my goal. It's not just to become another farmer and to sell it at the farmer's market, though I appreciate that. That's a very important lifestyle as well. That's not so much my calling. My calling is to make sure that there is food for folks to eat that is locally grown and to get that out to folks who are not as fortunate and who might need a helping hand and certainly need better than what you can buy in the store, which is adequate, but there are so much more wholesome things. And especially when it's grown locally, it has a little bit more of that connection to the place. People who eat local kalo play better Hawaiian music, I'm telling you. Nah, but that is sort of the big picture of my vision and what I would like to learn to be better at. Because I see Uncle George at his workshop. I see him balance so well the role of being an amazing Hawaiian musician, being the workshop instructor, but then also taking care of everybody. He gets food to so many people who otherwise don't have access to quality food like that, or maybe don't have enough in the first place. He makes that a priority. And I find a lot of inspiration in that. I hope that even a couple of you out there listening might also find inspiration in that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we all have to move to Hawaii and grow Hawaiian food. That would probably be a good push, give the state a nudge to support local agriculture a little bit more. But I'm just making the point that that is one situation that really informs the style of music that I play and that I grew up with. And if there's another style of music that you really like, there's probably lifestyle things associated with that that you can kind of lean on and learn more about that will inform the music that you play a little bit better. Right? If you are into like surf rock or something, perhaps cars are the thing that give you inspiration, and being part of a car community would help you relate to the music more, because that's sort of maybe the vibe that people were trying to capture in that style of music was cars and surfing and hanging out on the beach around a campfire and just having that good time. If you don't have any of those experiences, it's hard to express that style of music. So find whatever is relevant to the music that you love. In my case, Hawaiian music is very closely tied to farming and hunting, fishing, those kinds of things. Creating food. Food is important for lots and lots of cultures. every culture, because everybody has to eat, but some to different degrees. And especially with Hawaiian culture, there is a lot of emphasis on the local food and sustainable agriculture and things like that. And so that's why I'm so excited about this spiel, and I am passionate about sharing it, because I think it really is relevant to the music. You might be listening to this and thinking like, what is this guy going on about? But I believe it's important, and that's why I'm sharing it. I wouldn't share it otherwise. But get yourself out there, try and have life experiences, whether that is walking down the street right next to your house, smelling the roses, or if that means flying to another continent to experience the culture and people there, or whether that means going to a rave or going out into the middle of nowhere and bird watching or hiking or whatever you don't do. Those are the things you should reach out to, of course, in moderation, and explore the possibilities of, maybe I've never done that. That would be an interesting thing that would inform my life. It would allow me to grow as a person, and it would certainly allow me to have experiences in me that could inform my music. So thank you for tuning in. My name is Brad Bordessa. You can find out more about my teaching on liveukulele.com. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast or check out the store on liveukulele.com, liveukulele.com/store. And you can see some of my premium lesson offerings. Those go directly in my pocket and help support the content that I produce. I was on Oahu, like I said, and while I was there, I actually went to the Ukulele Site Studios with Andrew Katakis of Hawaii Music Supply and shot a couple of lessons at his studio, which is much fancier than mine. It's pretty cool to go see all of his equipment and see his setup, but also to teach some lessons and to share some of what I teach and some things that are important to me over on the ukulele site. So if you're interested in checking those out, I believe there are 3 20 or 30 minute lessons that I put together for him, or just I sat in front of the camera and he operated the camera. But you can find those over at the ukulele site in their membership section. I'm not sure how much a membership is, but I know that the content on there is top quality. Andrew creates, in my opinion, the best videos of ukulele content anywhere. He has top of the line gear. He has a good eye for production and is a super anal perfectionist as far as I can tell. Super cool guy, but he's a really kind of a workaholic type, and it really shows. You can tell in the quality of the content that he produces and the quality of the business that he runs. So thank you to Andrew for having me, for including me in the ukulele site membership video lessons and for inviting me to come over to the studio and teach some of those. There is one on, what did we do? We did strumming on a grid so that your strumming is always in time no matter what you play, and how to generate your own strumming patterns. It's a subject that I'm pretty interested in these days. Talked about changing chords easier, how to kind of find the common ground between chords, and also some tips for fretting them easier. And then I talked kind of just a grab bag lesson on kanikapila style, how to exist in a jam session a little bit more organically, and some tips that I had for, learning to hear the chord changes and learning to not need to look at the paper, and things to consider like dynamics and timing, different things along those lines that will hopefully be helpful to folks. So if you're interested, go over to the ukulele site and look for the membership section, and I'll see you over there. The Live Ukulele podcast is published on the first and third Saturdays of every month. I'll catch you in the next episode. Until then, be well out there, take care of one another, and keep playing that Hawaiian music. Aloha.